And at this point, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll start by introducing our Florida School Nutrition Association President, Roy Pistone. Roy?
Thank you, Tim. Good morning to you all. We appreciate you all taking the time to join us on our Legislative Action Caucus. I want to welcome you to the 44th Annual Caucus. Thrilled to be able to host this event and to have you all join us on this ride. We have some fantastic speakers here today to talk about what's impacting our school nutrition programs and strategies to help us improve these programs. This year has presented unforeseen roadblocks that have pushed our creativity and perseverance to its limits. We flipped traditional school meal system on its head, switched gears, and found new methods in which to successfully feed our children. What we have accomplished as Florida school nutrition professionals is outstanding. Did anyone really doubt us, though? We've made it through one of the most difficult years that some of us have ever seen. Now it's time to look to the future. Our speakers today are ready to share helpful insights and tips to make sure we come back strong, unified, and ready to face the next challenge that comes our way. I want to send a special thank you to our Public Policy and Legislative Committee led by Chair Tim Tankersley. We could not have put on this special event without their hard work. I would also like to thank our sponsors who have stuck by our side and continue to support FSNA through this past year. At this time, I would like to ask our Public Policy and Legislative Chair, Mr. Tim Tankersley, to introduce our first speaker.
Thanks, Roy. It's an honor for me to introduce our first speaker, who's going to share his knowledge that he's learned through his extensive career in both education and legislation. He spent 26 years in the Leon County School District. I've heard stories from my cousins about when he was their principal or assistant principal in elementary and principal in high school. And then he was elected senator. He actually served, I believe, as a county commissioner for 4 years too, while he was a principal. So he was elected superintendent. And at some point in time during that day, he hired me into Leon County, which was one of the best things to happen. And I guess the highest compliment I can pay somebody is he let me do my job. He didn't stand there looking over my shoulder. He told me what he expected, and that's how it went. And it was a wonderful time. Just hated to see him retire. But he then went and ran for senator and represented us until he was term limited out last year. And interestingly, he was in the minority party in the legislature, but they had so much respect for him that he was committee chair every session, I believe, and he accomplished a lot. And he's currently the CEO of the School Superintendents Association. And with that, please join me in welcoming Senator Bill Montford. Sir.
Thank you, Tim. Excuse me. Thank you for those very kind words. And thank you, Roy, President, and for everybody inviting me to be a part of this. You know, you probably say, well, he probably gets tired of this. Well, I don't. And I look forward to this. I look forward to sharing thoughts and ideas with you. And also I look forward to, to hopefully be able to answer your questions. I always like to try to reserve some time at the end of a presentation for questions, because I've always hated to, be in the audience and have questions and then time runs out. So we'll reserve some time at the end for this. And Roy, you said it very well when you said the food service departments across the state performed outstandingly. You did, and you also said there was no doubt you could do it, and that's true too. We were all of us who were involved on the edge of what you were doing. There's no doubt that you could do it. You also said, Tim, that you had to be strong, and Roy, you had to be strong and unified in your efforts this year. And I don't think there's been a year that I've been involved in the processes that is more critical than this year in terms of being especially unified in your voice. And hopefully today I can give you some ideas as to how to present your platform and your concerns and your problems, your challenges as well. If I may go back and give you just a little bit of my experience and add on to what Tim said. I grew up in Blountstown, which is 50 miles from here. We had 505 students, 7 to 12. And the food service program was critically important then, just like it is today. We had children who were in need, it's hard to believe that today. Today, it's hard to believe that, at least in the school I was in, that if you were on free, if you had a free lunch, and lunches, by the way, at that time were 20 cents, you had to earn that by sweeping the classroom. So if you can imagine what some children felt when the class got up and left to go to lunch, and you had to stand back and sweep the floor to earn your 20-cent free lunch. We've come a long way from that, thank goodness. But in a sense, so and this is sort of it tugs at my heart. When I was principal of a high school here in Tallahassee at Godby High School, and I was in the cafeteria one day, and there was a young man. I remember him so well. I know his name. I knew where he lived, and he was going around from table to table, picking up pieces of sandwiches and lunches that were left on the table and putting them in a sack. And I to myself, I knew what he was doing. I knew that he was taking those home. And so I walked up to him and offered assistance. And I asked him, I said, "Are you taking this home for dinner tonight?" And he looked up at me and with such innocent eyes and said, "No, Mr. Montford, I'm taking this home for my two little sisters." And I said, "Well, how old are they?" One was 2 and one was 4. And that hadn't been that long ago. And the sad thing is you and your colleagues see that every day that school's in session. And the problem with that, though, is we can't seem sometimes to communicate the intense need for us to recognize that many of our children, the only meals that they get really are at school. And we know we do the backpack programs and we do all kinds of innovative programs which are needed. But if you look at this, and there's a small piece of this, but there has to be such an emotional drain on our school food service workers when you see that every day and you want to take these kids home with you, or you want to do something for them. And sometimes, quite frankly, rules and regulations get in the way of what you can do. So I say that, just sort of a lead in to tell you where I'm coming from. And I have shared that story about that young man on the Senate floor more than once. And I said, within walking distance of the state capitol, there are children who went to school this morning, like today, hungry. And they left in a home environment that was not necessarily conducive to an academic environment. And so again, you see this, and your colleagues see this every day. And I think we talk about unsung heroes a lot of times. Our school food service workers and others, like bus drivers, are unsung heroes. We all know that if a child comes to school, or if he's at school hungry, or if he can't get to school, the academic, no matter how much academic preparations we have in all these expensive programs and highly trained teachers and administrators and others, if a child is not ready to learn, if a child is hungry, that child cannot perform as well as he or she could. And that's why when from 50,000 foot level, we would talk about school grades and holding people accountable. We don't go that next step and say, well, you know, how do you measure a child's academic progress when you know full well that that child is behind the 8 ball, so to speak? It's not unnoticed that you can just about predict school grade based on free and reduced lunches. That's not a, you know, that's not, you don't have to be a genius to figure that out. So we're saying all of that. I want to pause for a moment and say thank you. I've been around long enough to know that I know the food service programs in this state. And I can tell you that y'all do a marvelous job in providing, and sometimes again, in spite of what the rules and regulations, you do a marvelous job in providing for these children. And if I might, let's use COVID as an example, and you know this, but a lot of people don't. COVID is not the first disaster that you've dealt with. You deal with hurricanes over and over, and it's just routine. Some people would think. And what really have to be a little careful here. I don't want to step on people's toes, but you know, there's no one in Tallahassee and other places. They don't give a second thought to whether or not school districts can do it. You notice they don't turn to community colleges, and they don't turn to universities, they don't turn to private schools, and mostly they don't turn. You know, only a few charter schools get involved. So what happens is it's just a matter of fact. If a hurricane comes, they expect school districts to step up and meet that challenge. So same thing with COVID. When COVID came, there was no pause, there was no hesitation. They turned to the school districts, they turned to the school food service programs, and said, they'll do it, they'll deliver it. Now, there's a good side to that, and there's a bad side. It's a tremendous compliment to you and to school districts in general that the public just expected you to do it and expected you to do a good job, and that expectation is well earned. I mean, that their opinion of you is well earned. So what happens with the hurricane or with COVID? Y'all did a marvelous job, and I told superintendents when we first started, I said, now what will happen is, they are challenging us and expecting us to feed children, which is true, and we should. I said, but you watch it real quickly now, you'll be feeding the entire family. You'll be feeding neighborhoods. You'll be going into neighborhoods, and we did that, or you did that, and which was needed. And so unsung heroes, you are, and the people that work with you, because you delivered meals to people who would have gone really hungry and been in terrible shape if it had not been for your action. So what happened now after COVID? I mean, we're still in the middle of it. So if you and I've got a lot of notes, but usually I use these notes when I'm talking to a group like Kiwanis or the Lions Club or other groups, and so I try to share with them the challenges that you have. But these remarks probably you can teach me a whole lot. You know a heck of a lot more than I do. So I know more than Kiwanis Club, but you know more than I do. So I'm not going to bore you with telling you what you already know. So I would like, though, to share what I think maybe are some of the challenges that we face as a result of COVID. Again, we're still in the middle of it. We're far from being out of the woods on this. First of all, I think we need to do a better job in terms of providing PPE for you and for your workers. We just expect school districts to show up with it. Well, it doesn't work that way, especially when you're out there competing with the world, literally, for PPE supplies. And so what we have to do is I believe, as a state and as individual communities, we've got to step up and make sure that you have every resource that you need, every basic need that you have needs to be covered. And that in itself that's not easy. And then if we have to also, you've made tremendous adjustments in your physical space. For example, you can't put nearly as many people in your cafeteria as you used to. You know this, but quite frankly, all of what you know, you will be quite surprised that the general public does not understand that. They say, "Well, I hadn't even thought of that." I hadn't even you mean that's right? You can't put all these kids at the same table. That's right, you can't. And so, well, how do you do this? Well, you have to you know, if you look at a schedule, you're going to start serving lunch at 8 o'clock in the morning, and hopefully you get it through the last kid to go get on the bus to go home. So they said, well, they hadn't thought of that. And so throughout my remarks today, you'll hear me say, we've got to educate the general population in terms of what challenges you have. In addition to that, we've got to also make sure that people understand the financial costs that you are incurring. School districts have called on their general fund. You barely get by on a regular normal year. So when you have something like COVID or hurricane, it stretches your budget. And I know that districts have dipped into their general fund to try to keep you going, and which is okay, which is fine, which is what you should do. But at some point, we as a state and the federal government have got to realize that there's a financial cost to this, and we cannot expect school districts, we cannot expect you to absorb those additional costs in your budget. We know we have CARES money, and we've had that, and we'll get more. But what we have to do in terms of that is, as a state, we've got to be very clear that there should be no obstacles in using CARES money to meet the financial needs that you have. I know the superintendents, when they look at it, they've got a lot of challenges in addition to the lunch program. But we've got to make absolutely clear that how critical fully funding the needs of the food service program is critical. And I go back to the same record I go over and over again. If a child is hungry, the child can't learn. It's just real simple. So what do you do as an organization, or you as individuals? I have 2 or 3 suggestions for you. One is most people don't realize that we changed the food service program from the Department of Education to the Department of Agriculture. That was a significant change 4 or 5 years ago, and so sometimes we have to make sure that politics don't seep into the process and into the negotiations, if you will. So what now where you had all your contacts in the Department of Education, you had to quickly shift to have your contacts and get to know the people in the Department of Agriculture and educate the people in the Department of Agriculture in terms of what your needs are. And I'll say it again, please don't underestimate what they do not know. You would be shocked to know what they don't know. Not necessarily just in the Department of Agriculture or Education, but in the Florida legislature as well. Everybody comes into the Florida legislature with a background. Very few of them, very few legislators clearly understand and know the needs of the food service program throughout the state. So you got a challenge there. You already are working with the Department of Agriculture, but again, don't assume that they have a full understanding of the challenges that you have. The other thing is, and you do this already, but make sure you stay close to your superintendent. I know superintendents very well, but let me give you an example. We've got 24 either newly elected or recently appointed superintendents, 24 out of 67. And in our association, we train new superintendents. Department of Education in statute is Department of Education is responsible for training all new superintendents. Many years ago, they contracted, turned that over to our association. So historically, we've been training superintendents for 30 years, and we'll continue to do that. We have 24 new ones now. We train them throughout the year. As a matter of fact, and you know this well, that we have newly appointed superintendents all the time. So we've always got a training program going. Just every 4 years, we have a larger class. So we've got 24 either newly elected or recently appointed superintendents, and none of them come in with a school food service background. You just don't find that. So part of our orientation program, part of our training program for superintendents is a segment on the food service program. But I would encourage you though to make sure that you get to know your superintendent well, however that works, whatever it takes. Make sure that that you know them well. I will tell you, we did a survey recently of superintendents, and your department, food service program, is one of the most highly rated programs among superintendents. They appreciate what you do. Quite frankly, one of them told me that I'm in awe of how they get all this done. It was interesting that I was talking to a former superintendent of Miami-Dade, Roger Cuevas. Roger was there many, many years ago, and we still stay in touch. And Alberto Carvalho, who's there now, is one of the best superintendents in the country. If you stop and think just about Miami-Dade, it's something like on a daily basis, they serve more meals than McDonald's and Burger King and all of these fast food services combined. And on a smaller scale, you do the same thing. I mean, if you look at the number of meals that you serve, Orange County, for example, if I'm not mistaken, they serve about 1 million meals per week. Now think about that. Think about what it takes in terms of preparation and delivery, and very, very seldom do you have any really serious problems other than financial problems in the food service program. And those financial challenges are not your fault anyway. So if you look at what you do and how you perform, superintendents are exceptionally pleased. But again, the problem is those of us in the process, we know it, but those outside the process really don't understand the complexity of your job and what a terrific job that you're doing. So stay close to your superintendents, even though they love you and adore you. Go out of your way to make sure they know what you're doing, and however that takes. Next, I would, if I were you, I would focus on your local delegation. I've told superintendents this consistently. We love for you to come to Tallahassee. Love you to come up on a food service day or athletic day or whatever day it might be, or it may be a day for your whole county, Palm Beach Day, for example. But what's really critically important is that that your local delegation clearly understand what your unique challenges are. And I've told superintendents this again. We'd love for you to come to Tallahassee, but please meet with them on their turf and your turf. Don't wait to come to Tallahassee to introduce yourself and to meet with them and tell them what you need. You need to be doing that on a consistent basis. Reach out and invite. They probably won't have the time to come to your events, but invite them anyway. And if nothing else, they can send an aide, one of their aides to participate. Don't underestimate the power of legislative aides. They're the gatekeepers of the information that gets to the local delegation members. So those aides are important. I had 4 aides at one time, and a couple of interns. And the amount of information that a legislator receives is just overwhelming. So somebody's going to filter it out, and those are your aides. So invite them as well. But do that. Meet with them on your turf or their turf, and don't be discouraged if you have something scheduled and they have to rearrange it or reschedule it. Don't take offense to that. But work that local delegation and make sure that they know what your challenges are. So if I've got a few other things, Roy, but if I might, let me stop and entertain any questions, or maybe through the chat room if somebody has sent in a question or a comment.
Senator Montford, I'm
Yeah.
monitoring the chat room and I don't see any. I have one, since you just happened to, while I'm waiting for somebody else to ask a question, I'll ask this one because has to do with what you've been talking about. In your time in the Capitol, what did you hear or what did you perceive the biggest misconception about the school lunch to be? Because you're saying that we should go to them and talk about the school lunch and educate them. But we need to know during our precious time there, what's the most important thing to say? I used to tell people start with an anecdote, but is it that it's an entitlement? Does that bug people? Do they think it tastes bad? Do they think it costs too much? Do they think, that it's not nutritious? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's been any question about the quality of the food at all. Don't be offended by this, but the food service programs in this state, they're not high on the list of anybody's discussion. The only time they get concerned is if a mad parent calls. Now, but that's true of athletics. It doesn't matter what the issue is. They're concerned, really concerned, when a parent calls, and if somebody calls and says, look, my child, left his lunch money at home and they wouldn't let him eat. Something real simple like that. And most of the time when you dig into it, they find that really didn't happen. That child just didn't like that lunch, okay? Or he wanted something else, or he wasted his money doing something else. And so it's the mundane kind of things there that get parents upset, and then they call the senator's office and you're not gonna believe what happened at this school. So most of the interactions with the legislators like that, in my opinion, in my experience with it, has been anecdotal. This is what happened in my school. They've asked me, I was the education guy, and they'd say, hey, Bill, let me tell you what happened in my school. I said, well, how do you know it happened? Well, this parent called me. I said, well, let me make a suggestion to you. Why don't you call the superintendent or call the principal of that school and say, let them check into it and see what it is. But see, the thing is, y'all have done such a masterful job of meeting the challenges that you have. There's been virtually no eruption, if you will. We jump from crisis to crisis. We chase rabbits rather than bears, so to speak. And so you jump from crisis to crisis. No one, there's very limited criticism of the school food service program. I mean, no one complained that neighborhoods were going without food in COVID. You delivered. You were there. So it's almost, I hate to say it, but it's almost not like, it's almost like not on the radar.
Right. So we need to, Senator Montford, so I got you there. But I got two questions here for you. Okay.
Well, let me add something before I forget it.
Okay.
It's critically important when you meet with a local delegation, a single legislator or their aide, to have a simple 1 page, even a half page fact sheet to leave with them. I always said, put it on one paper like this so they can stick it in the pocket. If somebody gave me something like this size, I'd stick it in my pocket. If you give me 3 or 4 pages, I'm gonna hand it off to somebody else. All right, so and I'd go in, I'd use the time wisely. I'd say, let me give you the facts. Okay, I'm from this county. I serve this many meals per day, and this is my revenue. I mean, it's hard numbers. And they will probably say, well, what's the biggest problem you have? And when they ask you that, or you can go up front and say, before you ask, let me tell you what my biggest challenges are. I have, and whatever those challenges are. But at the same time, just say, let me tell you what's working very well. We've got more fresh fruit and vegetables being served in our school food program today than ever before. We are utilizing locally grown products. For example, in North Florida, they grow a lot of satsumas up here. And those, I helped the guy get hooked up with some of the food service programs, and they're serving fresh fruit. So it's the good things like that. Don't go in there with a whole bunch of problems. Give them facts, give them challenges, and give them the good things that you're doing. Those three things.
Thank you so much. Perfect. We have a question from Megan Sexton. Megan, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, thank you, Senator Montford, for that fantastic information. You had mentioned some of the CARES funds possibly being used to help some of the shortfalls in the food service financially. So how would this be facilitated, and whose decision would it ultimately be whether those funds could be allocated to food service?
Good, excellent question, Megan. What district are you from, Megan, if I might ask?
Pasco County.
Oh, Pasco. Okay, Kurt Brown. Kurt
Yes.
Brown is
Yes, sir.
He's I want you to tell him this. I want you to promise me you'll tell him this. Okay?
I don't know about that.
Yeah, come on now. You tell him he received an award recently. Okay? And he was selected as the ugliest superintendent in Florida. Now, will you tell him that now? You just tell him. All right.
I will. I promise.
And he'll have a comeback to me. I promise you.
Okay.
But and you know, one of the things that you're facing in Pasco is a tremendous growth. You know, you're building and renovating schools like never before. You remind me what Hillsborough was 20 years ago. You're expanding like crazy. Now I forgot what your question was. So tell me. Yeah.
About the CARES funds being allocated.
Yeah, work with Kurt. I mean, all the superintendents are united on that. What we're trying to do is convince. You know, when if you take, for example, when COVID hit, you got all this money coming in, and quite frankly, there's difference of opinion how the funds should be spent. There's a lot of people pulling for that money, and superintendents are caught in the middle, so to speak, and they've got to be a referee, if you will. But make sure you Kurt and the rest of the superintendents clearly understand the need. I know they do. We've discussed that, and so especially with the new CARES dollars coming in, it looks like that we'll get school districts if the federal government follows through with what the plan is now. We will receive a significant amount of money, and so I would anticipate that would be a no-brainer, if you will, because districts they borrowed out of the general fund, and that needs to be replaced.
So it would ultimately be the superintendent's decision on how to allocate those funds.
No, the superintendent will have to. It will be at the state level. Will make that decision.
But he would facilitate that.
Yes, and let me tell you how it works. Okay, the chair of the Senate Education Appropriations Committee is from Pensacola. Okay, Senator Doug Broxton, good guy, sat next to me. He called me about 3 weeks ago, and they needed to talk about. They had a finance issue they want to talk about. So he said, "Can you bring some superintendents up?" Sure, that's what we do. So we brought 5 superintendents up. Kurt was one of them, and so that's the way it works. Right now, superintendents are held in high regard among legislators, and they listen to them. And so the best, in addition to your own personal contact, the best way to get to these legislators through your superintendents when it's an education issue.
Thank you so much. Fantastic information.
Don't forget to tell him that now.
I will tell him, I promise.
Our next question comes from one of our vendors. So in addition to members, folks in school food service, we also have a very tight and very friendly and supportive relationship with the folks who provide the food that we serve. They do a lot of trainings for us. They share some resources with us, some of their chefs and some of their experts. So the next question is Christy Holmes. Christy, go ahead.
Good morning, Senator Montford. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning. Where are you?
I am actually on the road today. I left Collier County and I'm in Lee County now, but I work out of the Tampa office. I am a broker, the Affinity Group. And as Martina mentioned, we love getting in front of people and really explaining not only from the district level, but from the manufacturer level and the broker level, some of our challenges. And I was just wondering if you ever allow visitors or speakers during your superintendent training sessions.
That's an excellent question. If you pay enough, yes.
Good
I'm
answer.
I'm just kidding you. Let me tell you how it works, how our association works. Again, we only have 67 school superintendents in the state. Obviously, we have 100% of them are members of our association, and they are a very, very close-knit group. And when we have our meetings, we have what we call superintendents only meetings, sessions, and that means nobody's in there except superintendents, myself, and now in our association we have a very active business partner program, and our business partners, they come to our meetings, they participate in everything except the superintendent's only meeting, and we really look at our vendors, if you will, our business partners, as part of the team, and I'm sure your association does it the same way. Now, your question is, do we do that? Let me give you a perfect example. Go back to Kurt Brown, and we'll pick on Kurt again.
Mm-hmm.
Kurt called one day and he said, I've got this program that's so good. I mean, it's an academically based program. Can I bring these and the business people and let them talk to all the superintendents? We talked about it and we said, well, let's do this, because the answer to that is we don't have vendors coming and making presentations to superintendents, except when they're scheduled. Now we do have vendor presentations, but when just in front of the superintendents, no. But here's what we did, and it worked out very well. I said, Kurt, why don't you bring your team, whoever that is, and let them make the presentation and say, this is how it works. And so that worked out exceptionally well. And so we go back, I firmly believe that the power of that superintendent in the district, not that I was a superintendent, but if someone comes, if a superintendent comes and said, you're not going to believe what we have, this is a unique product in this food service program, or this is a unique relationship, then I'm sure we would work that. And because it's to the advantage of the students if all superintendents know something good that's going on. We share ideas like that all the time. St. Johns County, for example, 15 years ago started a an in-house health program, if you will, and from a vendor. And the superintendent, Joe Joyner, got up and he told about it, and it picked up in other districts. So we're always looking for good ideas. So I would encourage you to pursue that.
Great, thank you.
Senator, it's Tim Tankersley again.
Yep.
I understand that you have your association and you have created a committee that's made up of superintendents and some food service directors. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what the expectations are for that?
Yeah, to do what I basically said here, let's identify how we can do a better job in supporting the food service program, because we know superintendents clearly understand the importance of your role. I mean, one of the quickest things to get superintendent and principals in trouble is have a food service program that's not working. Okay, I mean that mamas and daddies get mad real quick. Okay, people talk about cheerleaders and athletics. Well, food service program is just as critical. You let that go south and you're in deep trouble. It's hard to dig out. So we're just being proactive in terms of trying to figure out a way to say what are the challenges the food service program is working, especially with COVID and the CARES money. So we're trying to make sure we stay on top of that. And I can't remember the makeup of the committee, but if you're looking for a committee to serve on, contact me. We can always use you. Guarantee it.
I have sort of a follow-up question to that, Senator Montford. one of our associates wrote the governor about assuring that school food service personnel are prioritized with the teachers in getting vaccinated. And
Yes.
so that's something that's important to me. We're all considered essential workers, but is there anything we can do to assure that our folks get that?
Well, I would, again, I go back to your local delegation, even though they don't, they don't make decisions, it's the governor's decision. But if you have a local delegation member that's close to the governor, and everybody pretty well knows who those are, I would certainly explain it to them. But see, that's been a mystery to me. To me, it's just common sense. The argument I made is, you talk about frontline people. Now, no disrespect to firefighters, I mean, at all. But you're talking about somebody that's on the front line. It's those who are with the students every day: bus drivers, custodians, teachers, principals, food service workers. You're right in the middle of it. I don't understand the rationale. Okay, my wife is a teacher. Okay, now she and I both are. We're past that magic number age. I can see on here. I don't think anybody is. That maybe Tim. Age to qualify. But to me, I don't understand the rationale. And we send a letter to the governor as well, and saying, I just assumed it would be, hey, that makes common sense, but he said no. But we won't give up on that. We'll keep pushing. But I mean, think about it for a minute. Who in the general public has more contact? Who has more contact with the general public than those working in schools? I mean, now my wife, she's a teacher, I say, and she has, I don't know how many second graders, but, I don't want to get mad at me, but, she has a limited number of students. Your people see hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of students every day. I mean, I don't understand the rationale when we at a state have not included frontline educators and staff in the priority list. Doesn't make sense.
Senator Montford, not so much a question, just maybe possibly a request. You say you have training for your new superintendents, which I think is fantastic. We do that here in Citrus County with new principals. We do training with them, and each member, whether it's new regular principals or people that have had more experience or people from the support sector, which is us, we'll go and we'll speak and we'll tell them a little bit of how our program runs. Could you ever see yourself, because we have new food service directors as well, and we try and coach them along with the challenges that they might be facing in their school district. Could you ever see yourself to allow possibly some school nutrition people that have been around a while, possibly sit in on your new training of superintendents and just give a little overview of the challenges that they might be facing in their school district? Because if it's a new food service director, they might not know how to approach that superintendent and tell them with how their program runs.
Roy, I think, that's certainly worthwhile. Our incoming president of our association happens to be Sam from Citrus County. So she, by the way, she was, superintendent of the year recently as well. But she's our president. But I think it's a good idea. I was thinking that maybe we could include some of you in terms of training superintendents. The new superintendents are, they're drinking out of a fire hose, but, and I can't remember off the top of my head whether or not, I'm sure we mentioned food service in there, but in the training program, but it might be that we need to include more of a food service training program for new superintendents. Let me follow up with that, and I'll tell you what to do. If we'll contact Sam and get your contact information, and we'll kick that around a little bit and see if we can do it. I don't know why we didn't think of that, and we may already, and I just don't know it. But as important as the food service program is, new superintendents we need to bring them on board real quickly.
Yes,
That's a
sir.
good-
Thank you. That'd be
good idea.
wonderful. And I got to put a plug in for Mrs. Himmel. She's right there. She'll help us serve. She'll do whatever it takes. Wonderful lady. I'm definitely privileged to work in this county with her.
She's something else now. She's something else.
Yes, sir.
By the way, you know what we've all learned with the new Zoom meetings that we're having is that some people strategically place things behind them, and I see you've got a Florida Gator bag.
That's for my buddy, Mr. Tankersley.
Oh,
We've already discussed that.
So
believe
I
that.
apologize if I've offended you, but that was for my buddy, Mr. Tankersley.
no.
And Sam is a Gator.
Oh, I know, but no, I laugh because we just hired a new staff attorney, and he's big time Gator, and when he does the Zooms, he's got Gator stuff all behind him.
Thank you, sir.
Just as a point, and for some reason I remember it was 9/11 when I was still up in the state office in another life. I did speak to the Superintendents Association at one meeting. And I think the reason I remember it because everybody had to drive. There was no flying at the time.
Yeah.
But,
we've had I know we've had DOE people there, especially from a health and safety standpoint. But you know, it may be good to have some real practitioners, there and say to the superintendents and say, hey, let me tell you how this really works. Okay. If there's so many, you just have so many challenges out there, and you have to make so many decisions every day that you don't have time to think about. You know what I mean? I mean, you got people lined up, you got to make a decision real quickly. Okay, give me another question. I don't want to go back to work.
We've got some thank yous posted on the chat room, and
Oh, okay.
appreciate your work and things, and very much. Well, thank you very much, Senator Montford.
Well, thank y'all. Appreciate it.
It is indeed heartening to know that somebody at your level knows what those ladies and men are doing down on that serving line. So it is truly a good thing. We appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today, and we do appreciate everything you've done. I got to tell one little story. You know, you talked about getting the calls from parents. When you hired me, I think you told me you didn't want to be getting calls from parents about the school lunch program. And I don't believe you got one while you and I were there together. But But I didn't tell you that's because I spent a lot of money paying your admin assistant not to forward those calls. So,
well, you know what? Talking about admin assistants, we can't survive without them. You know that. And so my administrative assistant association, she's on this call. She knows because she has to tell me what I promised I would do. So she just texted me and it said, during our spring virtual conference, we're going to open up the meeting to district staff that the superintendent wants to invite. She just texted me that. So you tell Sam you want to be Roy, you want to be one of her invitees, and
that would be wonderful.
How did you know about that? And I'll tell you what to do. Just tell her Senator Charlie Dean told you. That'll get her good. Okay. Well, look, hey, thank y'all again for inviting me, and by all means, let us know what we can do to help. We know how important you are, and I always just enjoyed working with our lunchroom managers. I'm a big eater, okay, and I always love, I just tell you that one of the best friends you can have is your local lunchroom manager. So, I mean, when I used to have my own apron, and I'd go down and she was hanging up in the manager's office, and I'd go down there, to eat breakfast or something. I'd put on my apron because I'd get it all over me if I didn't. And we just had a lot of fun. When I was a principal, it was it was a place for me to go, you know, to get away from the rat race, and I felt safe in our manager's office. You know, sometimes she was out working, but I just sit in her office. Secretary knew where I was, but I sort of, you know, you just hang out. I always had coffee on, and it was good to go down there and relax and all. But look, I know y'all are busy. You got a lot to do, but thank you for inviting me, and by all means, stay in touch with me, and Roy will follow up with Sam on your suggestion as well. Thank y'all. Tim, as always, it's good seeing you.
sir.
Somebody told they told a big lie on you though. They said you weren't as ugly as you used to be, but you are.
Well, thank you.
Y'all have a good day.
Thank you, Senator
Okay, thank you,
Montford.
sir. Really appreciate it.